consider this a professional courtesy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. I know. It's been another week of only very little of me sharing with you. Things continue to be kind of nuts. But hey, that's no excuse. So here I am back in the saddle. I usually am able to easily find a chunk of time to do stuff at the beginning of the week. I'm trying to find the sweet spot here in terms of getting open time so I can live up to the obligations of the show. Bear with me. I wanted to have a chat today, though, about the future of real estate in terms of automation. And we've sort of broached this subject before, lightly, but I thought we'd take a deep dive today. Of course, if you'd like to reach out to me yourself, you can do that through the website. Head on over to therebelbroker.com. From there, you can send along any ideas, suggestions, observations, questions that you might have that might be burning in your mind, and I'll be happy to address them. You can just click on the contact link in the menu bar to do that. If you'd like to help support the show, click the big red button at the top of the page titled Take the Survey to support the show. Take that magical survey. You'll be helping the show, but you'll also be putting your name in the drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card. Now, normally, I was going to do the drawing for this month's Amazon gift card on Friday of last week. But since I didn't do a show on Wednesday or Friday to sort of remind you, I figured I'd give it an extra week. So the cutoff date is now going to be this Friday. So just 4 days from today. And go ahead and get yourself over to the website, click that button, provide the same email address both times you're asked, answer a handful of demographic style questions, and you are all done. And you've entered yourself into the drawing for that $50 Amazon gift card. But I want to make sure and give everyone plenty of notice so that you have time to do that. So head on over. Good luck to the folks who haven't won yet. Congratulations to the tons of folks who have won over the past, it's been, I don't even know how long it's been. Have I been doing this a year yet? Anyway. So let's jump in. There was an interesting article about the future of real estate as it relates to automation. Now, on this show, we've talked a lot about automation. As I've mentioned, I think it is going to be the industrial revolution of our age, where the landscape of what people do and how they do it and how they earn a living is going to dramatically change. Tons and tons of jobs are simply going to disappear and be done primarily through automation. Everything from flipping burgers to driving trucks across the country are going to be automated. And the pace that it's going to happen is going to surprise most people. We've talked about this before because particularly in areas of driving, because that data can be applied to anything, right? Once you get the sensors on a thing, once you get a robot that has the full range of motion of a person, you're done, right? It's the software that then makes that thing do a different task. So suddenly your burger making robot can become your fry making robot, or your robot that brings the things to the other robot, right? There's several articles that have gone across my desk. Maybe I'll share those in a future show, or depending on how much time we have today, maybe I'll share them in today's show. But it's all there, right? But today's focus is on how this is going to affect real estate. Now, from a practical standpoint, real estate, the most important parts of real estate are parts that you can't really automate. But here's what's interesting about real estate. The vast majority of agents out there that consider themselves top producer agents, and we've talked about this before, are absolutely, completely, and totally 100% automatable. Let that sink in for a second. Those of you who consider yourself top producing agents, the value you bring to the equation can be completely replaced through automation. Now, let me sort of lay the groundwork for you here. And I know that there are agents who aren't falling into this category, but I'll tell you what, the vast majority of the ones I know that are quote unquote successful, which depends on how you define successful. If you're talking about financially successful, closing a lot of escrow successful, yeah, these agents are very, very replaceable via automation. And this is something that comes up frequently when I have casual conversations with people about real estate, things that I don't like about real estate. Chats we have here on the show. The vast majority of agents that I've met that are top producers aren't real good at real estate. They're not real good at the business of real estate. Or maybe that's not fair. Maybe it's more fair to say their focus is not on the things that equal the best possible outcome for their clients. And let me make that more clear. I don't want to just throw out something like that without giving you specifics. Top producers I'm familiar with, and there are a ton of them, don't tend to perform well in the numbers that you as buyers and sellers should care about. It's most easy to track this in listings, right? Why? Because it's you know when something gets listed, you know how long it's been on the market, you know how much it sells for. It's tougher to quantify the contributions of a buyer's agent. So let's just focus on the listing agent for right now. Most of your quote-unquote top producing agents do not score well when you judge them by how long it takes for them to get a home sold compared to the average in their market for that specific property. And they don't tend to do well on the average price that they get in terms of its deviation from the asking price. And what does that equal? So it equals that the seller in those cases actually would have probably done better with a different agent. Now, some of this is just simple math, right? If you have an agent who brags that they closed 300 escrows last year, and you were one of the people who was served by that agent, how much time do you think that agent actually spent doing anything outside of a regular old checklist to service your needs? And this is stuff that we have been sold as positives, right? All of these things that they have their team do, for instance, are almost completely automatable, right? And for all intents and purposes, the process is automated if you consider a checklist to be a tool to automate a transaction. And agents don't even do it. Agents hire a transaction coordinator. Some brokers provide a transaction coordinator, and they simply look through the file and make sure all of these things are present. Well, more and more, these documents are all being done online anyway. So the ability to automate this process is ridiculously easy because you're getting digital signatures for most of these things. Well, an automated computer system can see who has and hasn't signed because that's the nature of a digital signature, right? So here's where it comes down. What is the value add that an agent offers that goes above and beyond the automatable stuff? Making sure that certain documents get filed and all of those sorts of things. Well, most of it is the parts of the equation that these agents completely ignore. Skills that have been out of common usage for, maybe the entire time I've been in real estate. I've been in real estate since 1988. Over that time, I have met a handful of agents that I consider to be negotiators, right? And by negotiators, I mean folks that get in there, spend a little time learning about the players in a thing, and then trying to work out a deal that satisfies as many needs as possible while keeping in mind the needs of their client, right? Now, some of you are going to say, Robert, well, that's a ridiculous claim to make right now in your marketplace when it's such a seller's market, right? Well, yeah, that's true. And I would say that the market as it is right now is the exception rather than the rule. But I can also tell you that when the markets were not a seller's market, when it was a buyer's market, when there were tons of listings, I was blowing away. And this isn't, I don't want to use this as Robert's opportunity to toot his own horn. But I put in the effort to do better for my clients. And I know there's other agents that do too, but that's the point. The point is getting folks more money than the other guys in the same market, selling homes faster than other guys in the same market. And I do that by really dedicating myself in a lot of different ways to treating each transaction uniquely, because the people are unique. What you find with a lot of these quote unquote top producers is because they're spending so little time, there is no unique approach to a transaction. There is no real value add. What they have done is mastered the art of the living room, right? The charm factor, being able to go in there and pitch to whoever they're talking to sign with them. And that's what most of the top producing agents really are good at. They're not good at the real estate part. They're good at the getting people to sign with them part. And that's not even negotiation, right? Because you're not negotiating unless you're getting to the point of the conversation where you want to talk about what their commission is going to be. None of that is part of it. They have a script. They have something they've practiced over and over again. Again, something very easily automatable, right? So what, and this is something I'd hoped for before. I'd hoped when we had a huge downturn before, we'd see a lot of crappy agents go the way of the dinosaur, but we didn't. Sadly, when things get tough, the crappy agents tend to be the ones that survive. But what we need to return to, and I don't even know if we've ever been there, but we need to get to a place where real estate agents, in order to survive automation, need to actually offer things that automation cannot provide. Now, I've been automating as many processes within my business as I possibly can. But when it comes to negotiating, when it comes to working through the process, when it comes to keeping an eye out for potential pitfalls, those are the areas where humans will always be the better player than automation, because frankly, these automation things aren't going to be able to walk through the house and get a gut feeling for something, or say, you know, we really ought to get an inspection relating to this, or provide suggestions to buyers and sellers. At least not yet. And that's where the value add is. And that is where top producing agents tend to not be top producers. They tend to not deliver in those areas. So am I afraid of automation in real estate? Well, I'm not, as far as knowing I offer stuff beyond what an automation system does. But I know I have a lot of real estate agent listeners to the show. And I know I have a lot of real estate agent listeners to the show who disagree with me vehemently on things. But let me say this to you right now. In my opinion, if you are closing more than, I don't know, God, I mean, if you're working your butt off, if you're closing more than 15 escrows per month, you need to really consider how much you're doing for your clients that isn't something that could easily be automated. And I think it's, and here's the thing. Being that kind of agent, being the agent who's just good in the living room, it will get you deals. It will absolutely get you deals. And I'm not suggesting that my way is the only way to be quote unquote successful in real estate, if the measure of success is how much money you make. My belief has always been that if you're really good at something, you will make money at it, right? And unfortunately in real estate, just being good at real estate isn't usually enough. Some of the best agents I've ever met, who were the most invested in the success of their clients, who really took the process seriously, also were the least successful in terms of how much money they earned. In fact, some of them had to leave the business simply because they weren't really good at promoting themselves. I find it difficult to promote myself. That may be difficult to swallow, given the fact I'm talking on a podcast that I've been doing for 11 years. But it's true, and I'm at the point now where I invested a lot of time over the last couple of years to really spending more time on the show. I've kind of returned to investing more time in my business again, and I'm having to delegate that whole promote me thing to other people because I hate doing it. I love promoting your house. I love selling property and selling real estate, and I'm really good at that. But I need to delegate that. So if you're an agent who's like me, for instance, and you have trouble promoting yourself, This is where the team thing comes in. And I realize we're stepping a little bit away from the automation question. But I desperately want really good agents to survive. I desperately want the ones who take their responsibility seriously to continue to be out there active and servicing folks' needs. Because frankly, the only way this survives as a profession is if those are the folks that sellers and buyers see and can appreciate the value that those folks are bringing. Now, by and large, I like to think that my efforts, the amount I get paid in terms of my participation in the transaction, I like to believe I am saving my folks more money than I'm costing them, so that it's a net win for them. But in order for me to do that, I need to be watching out for the pitfalls of things that could cost them money. When I'm dealing with sellers, it needs to be effective negotiation, strategizing, figuring out timing, making sure that we're not accepting an offer too prematurely, or making sure we're not passing up an offer too prematurely. Being plugged into the stats on what's going on and really deeply understanding what the stats mean for the property that you're trying to sell. And for a buyer, it's the flip side of that coin. What are things that are pitfalls? What are expenses that you think are going to crop up after this escrow closes based on the things you've seen in the property? What are you going to prepare your buyer for? These are all things that are far more hands-on. And how many stories have folks heard about the agent who was right there for the signing of that listing agreement, but then they never saw them again? Right? It was always an assistant who would answer the call, or an assistant who would tell them this or this is going to happen at a certain time or date. And then the agent would never show up again. When the inspection happened, it would be an assistant, right? All these things are legal for an assistant, an unlicensed assistant, to do. But the bottom line is, every time an agent isn't there for a milestone of your property, they're missing an opportunity to get deeper insights into your transaction. Let me give you a good example. So I have a listing right now that is in the coming soon stage. It's a little bit funky because my seller is actively encouraging me to entertain offers during this open house, or this coming soon period. And I normally don't do that. I like to use the coming soon period as a time to gauge interest. I'll put information out, I'll put signage out, I'll put ads out, with really the only way to find out more about the property being my phone number. It gives me a really good way to figure out how much heat is going to get generated by this property. We had an agent call and wanted to see it, wanted to preview it. It was someone who had met the sellers in a hair salon somewhere, and the conversation turned to real estate, and this agent wanted to see it. Great, fantastic. So I arrange a time, they go, and I show up at the time that they're supposed to be there, and we go through the process. We walk through the home. The home is a wreck because the folks are trying to move, and all part of the preemptive process was to make sure that this agent understood that the house was going to be a wreck, because they're trying to move, they're trying to pack, there's boxes everywhere, the home hasn't been painted yet, and that's part of the plan, etc. The usual stuff. And my client was surprised that I was there. And I said, well, why are you surprised that I'm here? This is a great opportunity for me to meet face-to-face with another agent. Despite the fact this agent had told me it was a preview visit and they weren't bringing clients, she brought her buyer with her. So it was an opportunity for me to be face-to-face with a buyer. And you can read an awful lot from a buyer without even them telling you what they like and don't like about a property. Body language can teach you an awful lot. So it was a great opportunity for me to get a non-interested or potentially interested third party and get a feel for that. No AI or automation does that, right? But my seller was surprised that I showed up. He said, I really didn't expect you to come to that. I'm happy you did. I just didn't expect you to. I said, well, that's anything that happens with your property, I should be involved in until we get this thing done, until I achieve the goal of selling your property for the highest price and the best terms possible for you. So it would have been a complete waste of this visit if I wasn't here to observe and be able to see what's going on. That's what I'm talking about. So maybe it's a Jerry Maguire moment for everyone. Fewer clients, more attention to the individual clients you take. And I'll tell you, I've been both. I've been both agents. Early on in my career, I was a jerk. I was a perfect example of an agent who is typically spit out by the system, where I am happy to dial that phone and call people at odd hours, and for every 100 calls, get one opportunity to go and bother someone and talk to them in person. All of those things, were what I did. And I was being mentored by the top producer in my office when I first got into real estate. And it was the whole thing. And I became one of them. It took 2 or 3 years for me to wake up and realize I was being a jerk. And it was thanks to the example set by my grandfather, who'd been in real estate since after World War II. But finally I woke up to it, kind of shook it all off and did it the way I thought my grandfather would want me to do it. And it was a big change for me. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about this. We're going to take a quick break. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner, broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909.
Welcome back, everyone. We're chatting about automation. It's been a topic we've talked about a lot because of the huge impact I think it's going to have on unemployment, on the economy, all these various things over the next 5 to 10 years. It's huge, and I don't think anyone can deny it, and I think it's coming way faster than most folks estimate. I think the last article I saw that was timelining things was saying we wouldn't see a big impact on automation until 2030. I'd say that's about 10 years off. So it's right around the corner, something we should all be worried about. And I've read a few articles lately about how it's going to impact real estate. And if we don't focus as real estate people on really doing what we need to do to differentiate ourselves, we will go the way of the folks who shoe horses. In the turn of the century, when the automobile was starting to make an appearance in the early 1900s, the bottom line is this will still happen. Properties still need to be bought and sold. Can a huge portion of it be automated? Absolutely. But there are these windows where an agent who really has the interest of their client firmly in grasp are going to be able to exercise their attention in a way that is going to make a huge difference for their clients. A lot of it's going to be during the marketing phase of a property for listings. It's going to be in the negotiation phase for the contract. And it's also going to be then in following up on any inspections that go on. So right, all that stuff, once you sign the contract, you've basically got an automated process set up, right? I know that when I start an escrow, I click a button and I input the numbers from the contract in terms of how many days for X, Y, and Z, and it generates a timeline, and it publishes that timeline to all the interested parties, to title, to the buyers, to the sellers, and everyone has access to it, right? Fine, wonderful. But then the important parts, because, if you're a real estate person, you have exposure to this market and things that happen that other people don't. That's why you're getting paid. So it's not just a question of getting them to sign on the dotted line. It's a question of then reading the inspections. In certain areas, a really good example is I'm getting a termite inspection done on a place where typically termite is a big thing to worry about. It's an area where there's a whole lot of trees. It's an area where rarely will you ever sell a home without a termite report coming back needing at least $5,000 to $10,000 worth of work. So it's exceptionally common to have termites going on in these properties. I've got another neighborhood where if you were to get over $4,000 in termite work to be done, that's a surprise, right? It's usually $1,000 to $2,000 tops. And frequently you'll find nothing, depending on how long it spends since the last termite inspection. Now, I know these things, right? So I can calibrate people to it. I have connections with providers, and I don't want to overstate it, but I mean, I have folks I have worked with and know their level of reliability, so I can help facilitate those processes. And then when the reports come back, I can help the negotiate, because remember, every time there's a negotiation window, that's an opportunity for a real estate agent to prove their worth. Now, of course, with termite, if there's a lender involved, all Section 1 work needs to get done. But then what about the other stuff? What about the remaining work on this termite report that isn't Section 1 that you could technically get done or not get done? What about the home inspection and that may find aesthetic things, but not necessarily things that a seller should repair all of them, right? That's when negotiation comes back in. Those are moments when a real estate agent earns their money or doesn't. Now, as an agent who pays attention to that stuff, I find my job often to be relatively easy. When I get pushback in a transaction, it's rarely from the agent. If I get pushback, it's because the agent has told them what I want, or the agent has told their client what I want, and the client pushes back. But I tell you what, I actually enjoy those moments when I find I'm working with an agent who really takes the interests of their client seriously. I can't honestly remember the last time that happened. It has been years and years. By and large, agents are simply about closing it. They want the check. They want it as fast as possible. They want folks to simply sign and get it done. I see that there's a link to the motivation of their client there, right? Because the buyer and seller both want it to happen quickly too. But the agent too often is willing to overlook opportunities for them to really validate their worth by simply pushing things through to a conclusion rather than working to create the best possible conclusion for their client. So that's kind of where we land. Will agents continue to play a part? Well, some will, and sadly, some will continue because their marketing is good, but they'll suck when it comes down to actually validating their worth because they'll simply be an agent who's putting a human face on a process that could have just as easily been automated. In fact, that's what will happen. I think one of the biggest changes we'll see in real estate is that assistants will disappear. You won't need humans to coordinate X, Y, and Z or track document A, B, and C, and D. You'll find that you can survive with maybe one assistant instead of three, and the rest can be handled by an automation system. It's not going to surprise me when the tools that real estate agents use are integrated into an automation system where I no longer need to be the middleman between my automation system and the contract writing tools, say Zip Forms. I'll simply write up a thing in Zip Forms. Zip Forms will decipher everything I've entered in terms of dates and whatnot, and then we'll spit out a to-do list based on the contract and the dates that were input there, or the days from final signature. It's all right around the corner. If I was a coding guy, I'd already be working on it. It wouldn't surprise me if these kind of tools come around fast. Now, granted, the real estate agent tends to lag a little bit behind technology, but these things are all going to happen, and a lot of agents are going to celebrate because they'll be able to fire some assistants. But the worst thing that's going to happen for agents is their perceived value it should be diminished. Now, having said all that, we also need to understand the reality that for years, real estate agents have gotten the normal folks out there in the world who don't do real estate every day, who aren't buying and selling, who are simply folks who occasionally going to buy and occasionally going to sell a piece of real estate. We've managed as an industry to get them to believe that the agent who made the most money last year is the one you want. The agent who has the most signs and yards in their area is the one you want. The one who closed the most homes last year is the one you want. And none of that is true. Not a bit of it. None of it links to the actual needs of sellers, for instance, since those are the easiest to document, right? And some of you out there who are real estate agents totally disagree with me and are not too shy about sharing that. But if you sit down and talk to a seller, what are they most interested in? Now, there can be very specific client-specific things that freak them out, that you need to protect them from, or you need to try to make not part of a transaction so that they don't get stressed. Managing stress is a huge part of what we do. However, what are the core things they want? They want the highest amount of money in the shortest amount of time, or within the timeline that works best for them. Well, none of that has anything to do with how many homes you've sold. Nobody cares. Unless a seller comes to you with 50 homes to sell, nobody cares or shouldn't care how many homes you sold last year. None. You and your broker might care. That might be a very big number for you. It might make the difference between you taken a vacation to the Catskills or a European whirlwind tour of Western Europe. So I get you care. I get your broker might care, but you need, I think, in today's environment to stop worrying about what you care about. You need to stop worrying about what your broker cares about. You need to start focusing on what your clients need, because I'll tell you what, for those of you who are doing really well, and most of you who are in this boat of cranking out as many transactions as possible are in this boat, for you, if the public gets it and realizes it, you're in trouble. If you can't sell yourself as the person who performs better than average, you're going to be in a tough position. Now, here's the good news. I think that once automation really kicks in and starts taking hold, the agents who really are good at the important parts of real estate, the parts that we should all be good at already anyway, which most of us aren't, I'd say less than 5% of agents are actually any good at the parts of the job that are actually important to buyers and sellers. That's maybe a subject for another time. But I honestly believe that the folks out there who are really good at that are going to shine even brighter in an automated world. Automated systems are fantastic. But when there are variables in there, variables like how many days will it take for this to close? Who pays the various fees? How much will the total purchase price be? You know, nobody wants the whole, well, this is the number because the internet says this is the number, or nobody wants, this is what Zillow says it is worth, or the equivalent of what Zillow says it is worth, so that's what we will pay. The process of negotiation leaves that open to creative interpretation and a creative approach from folks who are willing to do that. So I guess this is a call out to two groups, to real estate professionals to stop focusing on your own needs. Stop focusing on the needs of your brokerage, which may be totally opposite of what you've been doing for a decade or more, but focus more on what your clients actually want and need from you. For those of you who are buying and selling, please stop using these agents that aren't focusing on your needs. And I realize it's damn near impossible to spot them because they're going to say exactly what you want to hear in terms of making you believe that they're going to focus on what's most important to you. But if their big selling points are, I sold hundreds of homes last year, or I made millions of dollars last year, please don't assume that means they're good at real estate. Because I'll tell you, I've met a lot of them, and they aren't really good at real estate. All right. Hope that was helpful. Thanks again for listening, everybody. I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to share a little bit of this with me. With any luck, I've left you with far more knowledge on the table than you've spent in time, because that's always the goal, right? We want to walk away feeling like we got more than we put in. Hope we've achieved that today. Thanks again for listening. I'll talk to y'all next time.